The council chamber on Nexara Prime was ancient. The walls were made from a single piece of crystal that had been there for thousands of years, maybe longer. Nobody really knew anymore. Inside this chamber, the leaders of 12 different species gathered to discuss the human problem. Elder Zephram stood at the center. He was Luxari, a being made of living crystal. His body changed colors based on his emotions. Right now he was showing light blue, which meant he was calm and slightly amused. "The humans have refused our generous offer," Vrixith reported. His multiple eyes watched the other council members for reactions. One of the Thalaxians, an amphibious creature named Kor, made a bubbling sound that translated as laughter. Of course they did. These primitive species always refuse at first. They do not understand the power we possess. Show them our strength and they will beg to surrender. Elder Zephram shifted to yellow, showing mild concern. What do we know about their military capabilities? Vrixith pulled up holographic displays. Images of human ships appeared in the air. They looked crude compared to council vessels. Metal hulls instead of crystal. Fusion drives instead of quantum fold engines. Missiles and railguns instead of plasma weapons. They are perhaps 300 years behind our technology, Vrixith said. Their largest ships are less than 2 kilometers long. They have no shields that can stop our plasma lances. Their weapons rely on primitive kinetic force. A Photari, a being made of pure energy, flickered with patterns that showed confidence. Send a blockade fleet. 40 ships should be more than sufficient. Cut off their supply lines. Within 2 of their months, they will have no choice but to accept our terms. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. They would teach these humans a lesson in humility. What the council did not know was that Captain Minji's stealth ship had been watching their fleet preparations for 3 weeks. The ship was small, coated with materials that absorbed sensor beams. It looked like just another piece of space debris. Minji watched the alien ships through her screens. She counted 40 vessels, each one massive and powerful. They moved with the confidence of a force that had never known defeat. Send everything back to command, she told her communication officer. Ship types, formation patterns, energy signatures, everything. On the moon, Dr. Yunwu received the data. He studied it for hours, barely stopping to eat or sleep. His team thought he was crazy, but they were used to that. Genius often looked like madness. He discovered something important. The alien shields rotated through different frequencies to protect against various types of energy weapons. It was a smart system, nearly perfect, but it had one weakness. It assumed all weapons would be energy-based. Hyunwoo called Admiral Jiwon. Their shields will not stop our railguns, he said. They are designed to deflect plasma and lasers, not physical projectiles moving at high speed. Jiwon smiled. It was not a nice smile. Humans have always been good at throwing rocks. We have just gotten better at it. She gathered her fleet at Tau Ceti Colony. 20 ships against 40. The numbers were bad, but Jiwon had fought worse odds before. She positioned her vessels in a defensive formation around the colony's orbital stations. The colonists who could not fight had already been evacuated. Only military personnel and volunteers remained. Everyone knew what was coming. The council fleet arrived exactly on schedule. They emerged from fold space in perfect formation. Their ships glowed with power, shields already active. The commander was a Luxari officer who had served for 2 centuries without ever losing a battle. He sent a message to the human fleet. You have one final chance. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Admiral Jiwon responded personally. This is Admiral Jiwon of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your mercy is not required. Your demonstration will be noted. Fire when ready. The council commander was surprised by the response. Most species begged at this point. They pleaded for more time. They offered compromises, but this human just told him to start shooting. He decided to fire a warning shot first, show these primitives what real power looked like. A plasma lance shot from his flagship, bright enough to hurt human eyes. It was aimed to miss the human flagship by a safe distance, just close enough to scare them. The beam passed harmlessly through empty space. Jiwon did not hesitate. She gave the order. All ships open fire. Target their shield generators. 20 human warships fired at once. Railgun projectiles, each one weighing several tons, launched at incredible speeds. They crossed the distance in seconds. The alien shields calibrated to stop energy weapons barely slowed them down. 3 council ships took direct hits. Crystal hulls cracked. Systems failed. One ship lost power completely and began drifting. The Council commander stared at his screens in disbelief. How was this possible? These primitives were supposed to be helpless against advanced technology. "Return fire! All weapons!" he shouted. The Council fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma lances cut through space. Energy beams lit up the darkness. It was beautiful and terrible, but the human ships had shields too. Not as advanced as Council shields, but specifically tuned to frequencies that countered plasma weapons. Dr. Hyunwoo's research had paid off. The alien weapons were less effective than they should have been. Ji-won watched the battle display. Her ships were taking damage, but so were the aliens, and the aliens were not used to taking damage. Their formations began to break apart. Ships moved out of position, trying to avoid the railgun fire. "Launch missiles, pattern Delta," she ordered. Thousands of missiles erupted from human ships. Each one was independent with its own guidance system. They swarmed toward the Council fleet like angry insects. The alien point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Some missiles got through. They slammed into hulls already weakened by railgun strikes. Explosions blossomed in the vacuum of space. Captain Minji saw her opportunity. While the main fleets fought, she guided her stealth ship close to a damaged Council vessel. The aliens were too busy fighting to notice one small ship among all the chaos. Her ship clamped onto the alien hull using magnetic locks. Minji and her team put on their powered armor. The suits were designed for combat in hostile environments. They made each soldier stronger, faster, and better protected. "Breach in 30 seconds, Minji said to her team. "Remember, we are here to capture, not kill. Unless they give us no choice." They cut through the hull using plasma torches. The interior of the alien ship was filled with atmosphere that would poison humans. But the powered armor protected them. They moved through corridors that were too tall and too wide, designed for beings larger than humans. Minji's team moved fast. They placed data extraction devices on every computer terminal they found. The devices copied everything, downloading years of Council records in minutes. They found the bridge and stormed in. The Thalaxian officers tried to resist, but their weapons were meant for crowd control, not military combat. Within minutes, Minji had captured the senior officer, a being named Cormath. "You are coming with us," Minji said through her translator. "Do not make this difficult." Cormath looked at the human soldiers in their armor. He saw weapons designed for one purpose only. He saw eyes that showed no fear, only determination. For the first time in his life, he felt afraid. Back in the main battle, the Council fleet was breaking. They had lost 12 ships. Another 8 were damaged. The humans had lost 3 ships and 5 were damaged. The numbers should have favored the Council, but somehow they were losing. The Council commander made a decision he had never made before. He ordered a retreat. The surviving Council ships turned and fled toward fold space emergence points. Some did not make it. Human missiles and railguns found them before they could escape. Admiral Ji-won watched them go. She wanted to pursue, but her ships were damaged and her crews were tired. She let them run. "Let them go tell their leaders what happened here," she said quietly. On Nixara Prime, Elder Zephyrim received the battle reports. His crystal body turned dark red, almost black. It was a color other Luxari had not seen from him in over a century. It meant shock and fear. 40 ships sent to intimidate primitives. 12 destroyed, 8 damaged, and the rest fleeing in disorder. The humans had won. Actually won. The Council convened another emergency meeting. This time nobody was calm. Nobody was amused. They had underestimated humanity badly. The question now was what to do about it. Some wanted to escalate immediately, send the main battle fleet, show humanity that this was just a minor setback, crush them completely. Others urged caution. Maybe these humans were more dangerous than they appeared. Maybe the Council needed to reconsider their approach. But pride won over caution. The Council had maintained order for 10,000 years. They could not show weakness now. They voted to send 300 warships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts. This time, humanity would learn their place in the galactic order, or so they thought. Captain Minji brought Cormath to a secure facility on Earth's moon. The Thalaxian officer sat in a chair designed for his larger body. His skin was changing colors in ways that the translator said meant stress and fear. Ambassador Tajin sat across from him. Between them was a simple table. No weapons, no threats, just 2 beings talking. "We are not going to hurt you," Tajin said. We just want information. Cormath made a bubbling sound that translated as bitter laughter. You already have all our data. Your soldiers stole everything from my ship. What more could you possibly want? I want to understand why the Council thought they could just take our colonies. Why did you believe we would surrender? Cormath was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. Because everyone always does. For 10,000 years, the Council has been the strongest force in this sector. When we tell species to obey, they obey. When we demand tribute, they pay. That is how the galaxy works. Not anymore, Tajan said quietly. Dr. Hyunwoo was watching the interrogation through a video feed. He was not interested in the politics. He wanted the technical information that Minji's team had captured. Fleet deployments, weapon specifications, shield frequencies. It was all there. What he found was both encouraging and troubling. The Council had better technology in many areas. Their shields were more advanced. Their energy weapons were more powerful. Their ships could travel faster, but they had weaknesses. Big ones. Their weapons were designed for wars that happened thousands of years ago. Wars against other energy weapon users. They had never fought an enemy that used kinetic weapons as their primary armament. Their tactics were old. They relied on superior technology to win battles, not superior strategy. They formed neat formations and expected enemies to be impressed into surrender. Most importantly, they had not fought a real war in living memory. The Council maintained peace through the threat of overwhelming force. But threats only work if your enemy believes them. Humanity had called their bluff and won. Hyunwoo shared his findings with Admiral Jiwon and President Seojin. They gathered in a conference room deep beneath the government headquarters. They are sending 300 ships, Hyunwoo said. Their entire main battle fleet. It includes dreadnoughts 5 kilometers long equipped with weapons that can crack planets. Seojin looked at the numbers. 300 ships against humanity's fleet of maybe 150. The odds were terrible. Can we win? He asked. Jiwon studied the tactical displays. She had been thinking about this question for weeks. She had run simulations. She had consulted with her best strategists. The answer was not simple. Not in a straight fight. If we meet them in open space, ship to ship, we lose. But humans do not fight fair. We never have. She brought up a map of the solar system. The Council expects us to defend our colonies aggressively. They expect us to meet their fleet in battle. Instead, we let them come to us. We turn the entire Sol system into a trap. She started pointing to different locations. Jupiter's moons, the asteroid belt, orbital stations around Earth, each one marked with red symbols. We have been preparing these defenses for 200 years. Not for aliens, but for each other. Mars and Earth almost went to war 3 times. We built these weapons expecting to fight ourselves someday. Hyunwoo smiled. It was a rare expression for him. Jupiter's gravity well. We can use it as a railgun accelerator. Fire projectiles that use gravitational assists to reach incredible speeds. Exactly, Jiwon said. And we have been working on something else. Show them, Doctor. Hyunwoo pulled up blueprints for new ships. They look different from standard human vessels. Sleeker, more advanced. We call them ghost ships. They use a drive system based on Alcubierre principles. They can move faster than light without using fold space. They can appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly. How many do we have? Seojin asked. 12. It is not many, but they are armed with antimatter torpedoes. Each one has enough yield to destroy a capital ship. Seojin leaned back in his chair. Humanity had been holding back. They showed the Council conventional weapons only. Let them think humans were primitive. Meanwhile, the best scientists had been developing weapons in secret. When do they arrive? He asked. 3 weeks, Jiwon said. We have 3 weeks to finish our preparations. The next 3 weeks were the busiest in human history. Every ship was equipped with new weapons. Every orbital platform was upgraded with better targeting systems. Every mine in the asteroid belt was converted into a remote weapon station. Captain Minji trained her teams for boarding operations. If they got the chance, they would capture more Council ships. Each captured vessel gave humanity more intelligence and more bargaining power. The civilians on Earth and the colonies watched the preparations with mixed feelings. Some were confident. Some were terrified. All of them knew that everything was about to change. Ambassador Tajan continued talking with Cormath. The Thalaxian officer slowly began to understand what he was facing. These humans were not like other species the Council had encountered. They did not think like other species. You evolved on a death world, Cormath said during one conversation. I read the reports. Your planet tried to kill you constantly. Diseases, predators, natural disasters. How did you survive? Tejan thought about the question. We learned to work together. We learned to plan ahead. We learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back no matter how bad the odds look. And we never ever gave up. The council species evolved differently, Cormath said. Our worlds were gentler. When we met other species, we were already more advanced. We never had to fight for survival the way you did. That is your weakness, Tejan said. You forgot what real war looks like. You maintained peace through fear. But fear only works until someone stops being afraid. The day finally came. Council sensors detected the massive fleet emerging from fold space at the edge of the Sol system. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation. At the center was the Eternal Judgment, the flagship of Fleet Commander Zelvan. Zelvan was Luxari, like Elder Zephram. He was old even for his species. He had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. He had fought in dozens of campaigns. He had never lost. He looked at the human defenses and felt something like pity. These primitives had no idea what they were facing. They should have surrendered when they had the chance. He opened a communication channel to Earth. This is Fleet Commander Zelvan of the Galactic Sovereignty Council. You have one final opportunity to surrender. Abandon your colonies and submit to Council authority. This is your last chance to avoid destruction. President Seojan appeared on the screen. Behind him stood Admiral Jiwon, Ambassador Tejan, and Dr. Hyunwoo. Together, they represented humanity's military power, diplomatic skill, and scientific genius. Fleet Commander Zelvan, thank you for your message. We have reviewed your offer carefully. Our response is the same as before. No. Seojan leaned forward slightly. But we have something we want to show you first. The screen changed. It showed recordings from Cormath's interrogation. The Thalaxian officer explaining the Council's real plans. How they intended to strip human colonies of resources. How they would make humanity second-class citizens in the galaxy. How their offers of mercy were lies designed to achieve compliance. Zelvan watched with growing anger. That information was supposed to be secret. How did humans get access to it? The screen changed back to Seojan. We know what you really want. We know you have no intention of treating us fairly, so we see no reason to surrender. We will fight, and we will show you what happens when you underestimate humanity. Zelvan's crystal body flashed red with rage. So be it. All ships advance. Show these primitives the power of the Council. The Council fleet moved forward in perfect formation, 300 ships entering the Sol system. They expected the human fleet to meet them in battle. They expected a glorious victory. Instead, the human ships retreated toward Mars. They were running away. Zelvan smiled. The primitives were finally showing proper fear. He ordered his fleet to pursue. They would catch these humans and end this rebellion quickly. The Council fleet passed Jupiter's orbit. They were deep in the Sol system now, exactly where Admiral Jiwon wanted them. She gave the order. Spring the trap. Hidden installations on Jupiter's moons activated. Railguns fired projectiles that used Jupiter's massive gravity to accelerate to impossible speeds. The projectiles hit the Council formation like the fist of an angry god. Ships that had seemed invincible a moment ago began to die. Hulls cracked. Systems failed. Some ships simply disappeared in clouds of debris. Zelvan stared at his screens in shock. This was impossible. How could primitives do this? Then the human fleet stopped retreating. They turned and charged forward. And behind them came 12 ships that moved like nothing Zelvan had ever seen. The ghost ships had entered the battle. And with them came antimatter torpedoes that turned capital ships into miniature stars. The Battle of Sol had begun, and it was not going the way the Council expected. The stars looked different today. Admiral Jiwon stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, her fingers drumming against the command console. Her crew worked quietly around her, monitoring screens that showed the peaceful darkness of space. Everything seemed normal, but her instincts told her otherwise. She was 52 years old and had spent 30 of those years in space. The scar on her left temple reminded her of her first command, when a hull breach nearly killed her entire crew. She learned that day to trust her gut. Right now, her gut screamed that something big was coming. The communication officer turned to her. His face was pale. That was never a good sign. Admiral, we have an unknown signal near Mars. It just appeared out of nowhere. G1 moved to the main screen. The image showed a massive ship, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its hull was made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Get me Ambassador Tajin, now. G1 kept her voice calm, but her heart was racing. On Earth, Ambassador Tajin received the call during breakfast. He was 67, with silver hair and the kind of eyes that had seen everything. He had negotiated peace between Mars colonies and Europa mining companies. He had solved disputes that others said were impossible, but as he looked at the images from Mars orbit, he knew this was different. Within an hour, Tajin stood in a conference room. The alien ship had sent a message. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. The meeting took place on a shuttle halfway between Earth and the alien vessel. Tajin walked into the room with 2 guards. The alien was already there, waiting. It looked like a giant insect, standing on 4 legs with 2 arms that moved in ways that made Tajin's stomach turn. Its head had too many eyes. When it spoke, a device around its neck translated the words into English. I am Vrixith, representative of the Galactic Sovereignty Council. We have come to inform you that humanity has violated our laws. Tajin sat down slowly. He showed no fear on his face. Years of diplomacy had taught him that the first one to show emotion usually lost. What laws? We did not know you existed until today. Vrixith made a clicking sound. The translation device called it laughter, but it sounded nothing like human laughter. Ignorance is not an excuse. Your colonies exist in space that belongs to the Council. You have 30 of your solar days to leave these worlds. You will also submit to Council authority and pay tribute for your crimes. A holographic display appeared in the air. It showed the human colonies, each one marked with red symbols. 12 worlds where millions of people lived and worked. Worlds that humanity had spent 200 years building. And if we refuse, Tajin asked quietly, then we will remove you by force. The Council has maintained peace in this sector for 10,000 years. We will not allow a primitive species to disrupt that peace. Tajin stood up. He was shorter than the alien, but he straightened his back and looked directly at those multiple eyes. I will deliver your message to my government, but you should know something about humans. We do not respond well to threats. Back on Earth, the unified government held an emergency meeting. The chamber was full. Representatives from every nation and every colony had come. The arguing started immediately. Some wanted to give in. They said humanity could not fight an empire that controlled multiple star systems. They talked about saving lives and avoiding war. Others refused to surrender. They said humans had not spent 2 centuries building colonies just to hand them over to aliens. They talked about freedom and independence. President Seojin listened to all of them. He was a former military officer who had fought in the Mars Rebellion. He knew what war looked like. He also knew what surrender looked like. Neither option was good, but one was worse than the other. He called Admiral G1 and asked one question. Can we win? G1 thought for a long moment. She looked at the reports on the alien ship. She thought about human technology and human training. She thought about what humans did best. I do not know if we can win, but I know we can fight, and if we are going to die, we should die standing up. Seojin made his decision. He told Tajin to send a response to the Council. The message was simple. Tajin stood before the camera and spoke clearly. To the Galactic Sovereignty Council, we have received your ultimatum. After careful consideration, our answer is no. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not submit to your authority. We will not pay tribute for building homes in space that was empty when we arrived. He paused, and then a small smile appeared on his face. We appreciate your concern, but humanity does not do surrender. If you wish to discuss this matter as equals, we welcome negotiations. If you wish to make more threats, you will find we are not easily frightened. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Across Earth and all the colonies, people watched the message. Some cheered. Some cried. Everyone wondered what would happen next. Admiral G1 started preparing her fleet. She pulled ships from patrol duty and called in reserves. Every captain received the same message. Get ready for war. In a secret facility beneath the surface of the moon, Dr. Hyunwoo was already working. He was 38 years old and one of the smartest people humanity had ever produced. He was also socially awkward and preferred machines to people. But when it came to weapons, he was a genius. His team had been studying the alien ship since it arrived. They analyzed every detail, every energy signature, every pattern in its shields. Hyunwoo found something interesting. The alien defenses were strong against energy weapons, but they cycled through different frequencies. That meant there were gaps. Small ones, but gaps nonetheless. He started designing new weapons that could exploit those gaps. Captain Minji received her orders at the Special Operations Base. She was 31 and had been leading elite soldiers since she was 25. Her brother died in a pirate attack on a civilian transport. Since that day, she dedicated her life to protecting humans in space. Now she had a new mission. Take a stealth ship and follow the aliens. Learn everything possible about them. Find their weaknesses. Minji selected her best soldiers and prepared to launch. They all knew this was dangerous. Stealth technology was good but not perfect. If the aliens detected them, they would die far from home. None of them hesitated. On the alien ship, Vrixith watched the human response with something like surprise. In 10,000 years, no species had ever refused the council. Most civilizations saw the demonstration of force and immediately surrendered. The few that resisted were destroyed quickly. But these humans seemed different. They knew they were outmatched. They knew the council could bring overwhelming force, and yet they refused anyway. Vrixith sent a message back to the council homeworld. He told them that humans had rejected the ultimatum. He recommended sending a blockade fleet to force compliance through economic pressure. What Vrixith did not mention in his report was the look in Ambassador Taejin's eyes during their meeting. Vrixith had seen many species surrender. He knew what fear looked like. But when Taejin looked at him, there was no fear. There was calculation. There was determination. There was something else too, something that made Vrixith uncomfortable, though he could not explain why. It looked almost like amusement, as if the human found the entire situation funny. Across human space, the word spread quickly. The aliens had made demands. Humanity said no. War was coming. In bars and homes, in military bases and civilian stations, humans prepared themselves. Some prayed. Some trained. Some said goodbye to loved ones, and some laughed. Because humans had been through this before, not with aliens but with each other. They had faced extinction and survived. They had fought impossible odds and won. The council thought they could frighten humanity into submission. They did not understand that fear was something humans lived with every day. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them constantly. They had survived diseases and disasters and wars that nearly destroyed their entire species. Fear was an old friend. And friends did not control you. They made you stronger. The clock started counting down. 30 days until the council's deadline. 30 days to prepare for war. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened their homes. The space around Jupiter was filled with death. Council ships tried to reform their formations, but the human attacks were relentless. Every direction brought new threats. Railgun projectiles from the moons, missiles from the human fleet, and those strange ghost ships that appeared and disappeared like demons. Fleet Commander Zelvon gripped his command console. His crystal body flickered between colors so fast that his crew could not read his emotions. Rage, fear, confusion, all of them mixed together. Concentrate fire on those fast ships, he ordered. They are the biggest threat. But targeting the ghost ships was nearly impossible. They moved too fast. They appeared behind council vessels, fired antimatter torpedoes, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Each torpedo created a flash of light brighter than a sun. Each flash meant another council ship was gone. Admiral Jiwon watched the battle from the bridge of the Indomitable. Her tactical display showed the council formation falling apart. Good. Chaos was humanity's friend. The aliens were used to organized warfare, neat formations, predictable tactics. Humans learned different lessons from their history. Sometimes the best strategy was controlled chaos. Make the enemy react instead of act. Force them to fight on your terms. All ships pattern echo, she commanded. Let them chase us through the asteroid belt. The human fleet turned and headed toward the asteroid belt. They moved through the field of rocks with practiced ease. They had trained in this environment for decades. They knew every asteroid, every hiding spot. Some council ships followed. They were angry and wanted revenge. But the asteroid belt was not their territory. It was humanity's. Hidden among the asteroids were mining stations that had been converted into weapons platforms. As council ships entered the belt, These stations activated. Missiles launched from rocks that looked dead and empty. Lasers fired from facilities disguised as mining equipment. More Council ships died. The survivors tried to retreat back to the main fleet, but human ships harassed them every step of the way. Captain Minji saw her chance again. 3 Council cruisers were damaged and falling behind. Their shields were weak. Their crews were distracted by trying to survive. She split her forces. 3 teams, 3 targets. They approached using the asteroids as cover. The aliens never saw them coming. Minji's team breached the first cruiser. The fighting inside was brutal but short. The aliens tried to defend their ship, but they were not trained for close combat. Human soldiers in powered armor were. Within an hour, all 3 ships were captured. More intelligence. More prisoners. More evidence that the Council was not as invincible as they claimed. Back at the main battle, Zelvon finally accepted the truth. He was losing. The Council fleet had lost over 80 ships, 80, against a primitive species that should have been easy to crush. His tactical officers reported more bad news. The human defenses extended throughout the entire Sol system. Earth itself was surrounded by orbital weapons platforms. Mars had its own defensive fleet. Even the outer planets had hidden installations. The humans had turned their home into a fortress. They had been preparing for this war for centuries, except they had been expecting to fight each other, not aliens. Zelvon made a decision that went against everything he believed. All ships, withdraw. Return to fold space emergence points. We retreat. His crew stared at him in shock. The Council did not retreat. The Council did not lose. That is an order. Withdraw now before we lose more ships. The surviving Council ships turned and fled. Some did not make it. Human missiles and railguns found them before they could escape. But most survived. They jumped to fold space and disappeared, leaving behind their dead. Admiral Jiwan did not pursue. Her ships were damaged. Her crews were exhausted. And she had proven her point. Humanity could fight. Humanity could win. She opened a channel to all human forces. All ships cease fire. Begin rescue operations for survivors, both human and alien. We won today. Let us show we can also be merciful. Across the Sol system, humans began the difficult work of searching through debris for survivors. They found some. Not many, but some. Both human and alien wounded received medical care. Both human and alien dead were treated with respect. On Earth, President Seojin addressed the planet. The speech was broadcast throughout human space and, thanks to captured Council communication equipment, throughout Council space too. Today, humanity defended our homes against an invasion. We did not ask for this war. We offered to negotiate as equals. The Council chose violence instead. We responded in kind. He paused and looked directly at the camera. But this war does not have to continue. We do not want to conquer the Council. We do not want to destroy their civilization. We simply want to be left alone to build our own future. To the species of the Council, we say this. Your leaders told you that humanity was primitive and weak. They told you we would surrender easily. They were wrong. We are not primitive. We are not weak. And we do not surrender. But we are not monsters either. We offer peace. Not submission, but genuine peace between equals. If the Council is willing to negotiate fairly, we are willing to listen. The choice is yours. On Nexara Prime, the Council leaders watched the human broadcast. The chamber was silent. For 10,000 years, they had ruled this sector of space without challenge. Now a species they considered primitive had defeated their main battle fleet. Elder Zephram's crystal body was almost black, the color of deep shame and fear. He had sent those ships. He had promised an easy victory. He had been wrong about everything. Rixith stood and spoke. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened. We underestimated them. Not just their weapons, but their nature. These humans are not like us. They evolved differently. They think differently. They fight differently. Kor, the Thalaxian representative, made an angry gesture. They destroyed 80 of our ships. We must respond with overwhelming force. Send every ship we have. Turn their planet into dust. And lose how many more ships? Rixith asked. We sent 300 of our best vessels. Less than 200 returned. If we escalate further, we risk losing everything. A Photari representative flickered with patterns that showed uncertainty. Perhaps we should consider their offer. They say they want peace. Maybe we should negotiate. Negotiate? With primitives? That would show weakness. Kor insisted. Elder Zephyrim finally spoke. His voice was tired. We have already shown weakness. We sent our finest fleet and it was defeated. Continuing to fight will only demonstrate that weakness further, but if we negotiate, we might salvage something from this disaster. The argument continued for hours. Some council members wanted revenge. Others wanted peace. A few wanted to pretend the whole thing never happened. Finally, they voted. The decision was narrow but clear. They would send an ambassador to Earth. They would negotiate. But not everyone agreed with this decision. Some council species began to whisper about breaking away. Some talked about forming their own alliances. The council's authority, maintained for 10,000 years, was beginning to crack. On Earth, Dr. Hyunwoo continued analyzing the captured ships. What he found was fascinating. The council had better technology, yes, but they used it inefficiently. They had plasma weapons that could destroy planets, but they were bulky and slow to charge. They had shields that could stop almost anything, but the shields required enormous power. They had ships that could travel faster than light, but their drives were fragile and complex. Human technology was simpler, cruder, but it was also more reliable. A human railgun had no moving parts beyond the projectile. It was nearly impossible to break. Human missiles were cheap to produce and deadly in large numbers. The council had forgotten that sometimes the best weapon is not the most advanced one. Sometimes the best weapon is the one that works when you need it. Captain Minji debriefed her teams. They had captured 12 council ships now. 12. Each one was being studied carefully. Human engineers were learning how council technology worked. Soon they might be able to build their own versions. More importantly, the prisoners were talking. Some voluntarily, some after gentle persuasion. They told humans about the council's internal politics, about species that were unhappy with council leadership, about colonies that wanted more independence. The council was not as unified as they pretended. The cracks were there, waiting for pressure to widen them. Ambassador Taejin prepared for the next round of negotiations. He had a feeling these talks would be very different from the first meeting. The council had demanded surrender then. Now they were asking for peace. But Taejin was not interested in simply ending the war. He wanted to change the entire system. The council's method of governing through threats and fear had to end. It was unstable. It created resentment. It would eventually lead to more wars. Better to build something new. Something based on mutual respect instead of domination. Something that could last. He discussed his ideas with President Seo-jun and Admiral Ji-won. They were ambitious ideas. Maybe impossible ideas, but humans had just done the impossible by defeating the council fleet. Why not try for another miracle? 3 days after the Battle of Seoul, a council ship arrived at Earth. It came alone, flying under a white flag hologram. The ship carried Ambassador Vrixith. Taejin met him at the same shuttle where they had first talked. But everything was different now. Then Vrixith had been confident and commanding. Now he seemed smaller somehow, defeated. They sat across from me. The negotiations took place on a neutral world. Not a council planet, not Earth, but a moon orbiting a gas giant halfway between their territories. Both sides agreed to call it New Horizons, a fitting name for what they hoped to build. Ambassador Taejin arrived with a small delegation. Admiral Ji-won came as military advisor. Dr. Hyunwoo represented scientific interests. Captain Minji provided security. President Seo-jun watched from Earth through real-time communications. The council sent Vrixith as chief negotiator, along with representatives from each member species. Elder Zephyrim himself attended, which showed how seriously they took these talks. The Luxari leader had not left Nexara Prime in over 50 years. The conference room was built specifically for this meeting. It had atmosphere controls that could support all the different species, seats designed for bodies of all shapes, translation devices for dozens of languages. Taejin stood before the assembled representatives. He had prepared this speech for weeks. Everything depended on getting it right. Thank you all for coming. I know this is difficult. Wars always are. But I believe we have an opportunity here to build something better than what existed before. He activated a holographic display. It showed Earth rotating slowly. This is my home. To you it might look like a normal world, but by galactic standards, Earth is what we call a death world. Everything on it tries to kill everything else. The gravity is higher than most inhabited planets. The weather is violent. The native life is aggressive. The hologram changed, showing images of Earth history. Humans fighting predators. Humans surviving plagues. Humans rebuilding after natural disasters. Humans evolved in constant competition, not just with nature but with each other. We fought wars for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We created weapons so terrible that using them would mean our extinction. Elder Zephram shifted to a dark blue color, concern mixed with understanding. You are saying your species is naturally violent? I am saying we understand violence, Tejan replied. We know what war costs. We know how to fight. But we also learned how to cooperate. We learned that working together is the only way to survive. He changed the display again. Now it showed council worlds. Beautiful planets with gentle weather, peaceful evolution. Your species evolved differently. Your worlds were kinder. You developed cooperation earlier. When you met other species, you were already more advanced. You never had to fight for survival the way we did. And that is why we lost, Vrixith said quietly. We forgot what real war looks like. Tejan nodded. The council maintained peace for 10,000 years through superior technology and the threat of force. But you never had to use that force seriously. Species saw your ships and surrendered. You never fought an enemy that refused to quit. Kor, the Thalaxian representative, made an angry gesture. So you are saying the council is weak? That we deserve to be conquered? No, Tejan said firmly. I am saying the council became complacent. Any system that relies on fear and threats will eventually face someone who is not afraid. You found that someone in humanity. Admiral Jiwan stood up. She had been quiet until now, but it was time for her to speak. We did not win because we are better than you. We won because we have different strengths. You have technology we can barely understand. You have knowledge accumulated over millennia. You have achieved peace among dozens of species. She gestured at the council representatives. But you forgot how to adapt. You forgot how to innovate under pressure. You created a system that worked perfectly as long as nobody challenged it. Humanity challenged it and the system broke. Dr. Hyunwoo added his perspective. Your plasma weapons are more powerful than our railguns. Your shields are more advanced than ours. Your ships are faster, but you designed everything for the kind of war you expected to fight. You assumed all enemies would use energy weapons. You assumed all enemies would fight in formation. He brought up technical diagrams showing both human and council weapons. We used kinetic weapons because they are simple and reliable. We used swarm tactics because we learned them fighting each other. We turned our entire solar system into a fortress because we expected to defend it someday. Elder Zephram was quiet for a long time. His crystal body cycled through colors that showed deep thought. What do you propose? He finally asked. Tejan took a deep breath. This was the important part. I propose we end the council as it exists. No more hierarchical governance. No more species demanding tribute from others. No more ultimatums. Several council representatives made sounds of protest, but Tejan continued. Instead, we build a new alliance, one based on mutual respect. Each species keeps its sovereignty. Each world governs itself, but we agree to defend each other. We agree to share technology. We agree to resolve disputes through negotiation, not force. And if a species refuses to join this alliance, Vrixith asked, then they do not join. We do not force anyone. The old council used threats to maintain order. The new alliance will use mutual benefit. Kor stood up angrily. This is surrender. You want us to dismantle everything we built over 10,000 years? No, Elder Zephram said quietly. He wants us to evolve. And he is right. The other council members turned to stare at their leader. Elder Zephram's colors settled into a clear, bright blue. Acceptance and hope. The old system was already failing. Species were unhappy but afraid to speak. Smaller civilizations resented paying tribute. We maintained order through fear, and fear breeds resentment. He looked at Tejan. Humanity showed us that our power was an illusion. When challenged by someone who refused to be afraid, we could not maintain control. Better to accept this truth and build something new than to continue pretending the old ways still work. The negotiations continued for weeks. Some council species supported the new alliance immediately. Others resisted. A few threatened to leave and form their own governments. Tejan met with each representative individually. He listened to their concerns. He adjusted the proposal to address legitimate issues. He refused to compromise on the core principles, but he showed flexibility on details. Vrixith became an unexpected ally. The insectoid diplomat worked behind the scenes, convincing other species that this change was necessary. He had seen humanity fight. He understood that the galaxy had changed forever. Captain Minji spent her time walking the corridors of New Horizons. She talked with security forces from different species. She learned about their cultures and histories. Many of them had fought in the recent battle. They had lost friends and colleagues, but they did not hate humans. They respected them. They understood that both sides had been following orders. And now both sides had a chance to build something better. Dr. Hyunwoo worked with council scientists. They shared research enthusiastically. The council scientists were amazed by human innovations in kinetic weapons and defensive systems. The human scientists were fascinated by council energy manipulation and faster-than-light technology. They realized they could learn from each other. Different evolutionary paths had led to different solutions. Combining their knowledge would benefit everyone. Finally, after 6 weeks of intense negotiation, they had a document everyone could accept. The Treaty of New Horizons. It established principles for the new alliance: sovereignty for all species, mutual defense agreements, technology sharing protocols, neutral arbitration for disputes. Most importantly, it established that no species had authority over any other. The days of ultimatums and forced compliance were over. The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout known space. Representatives from humanity and all council species stood together. Elder Zephyrim and President Seojin signed first, their signatures representing their peoples. Then, one by one, every other representative signed. Even Kor, despite his misgivings, even species that had been skeptical, they all understood that something historic was happening. Taejin gave a short speech after the signing. Today we begin a new era. Not because humanity defeated the council, not because the council surrendered, but because we all chose to build something better. The old galaxy was governed by fear. The new galaxy will be governed by cooperation. The old galaxy had masters and servants. The new galaxy has partners and equals. He smiled. When the council demanded Earth's surrender, humanity laughed. Not because we thought war was funny, but because we understood something the council had forgotten. Freedom is not given. It is not granted by those in power. Freedom is taken by those brave enough to defend it. Today, every species in this alliance is free to govern themselves, free to pursue their own destiny, but also free to stand together when threats arise. That is the gift we give each other. That is what makes this alliance strong. Admiral Ji-won stood with former fleet commander Zelvon. The Luxari officer had been her enemy weeks ago. Now they were colleagues working together to integrate their militaries. Strange how things change, Zelvon said through his translator. I came to destroy your species. Now I am learning from you, Ji-won smiled. That is what survivors do. We adapt, we learn, we move forward. Both our species are survivors. That gives us common ground. As the celebrations continued, a small group gathered privately. Taejin, Ji-won, Hyunwoo, Minji, and Seojin on one side.